Hi guys, my name's Irene TTYA and welcome to PLT Behind Closed Doors Season 6. I'll be taking over the podcast for a 4-part Black History Month special. The theme for October is Be Strong, because you know we're strong beings. And this month I'll be speaking to 4 guests who will discuss their personal experiences as Black women and learning how we can be strong in the face of prejudice and adversity. So you know, every episode, guys, we need to be focused. And today I'm going to be joined by Toni Tone, an influencer best known for her hard-hitting tweets on everything from empowerment to wellness and dating, who've been shared by the likes of Oprah Magazine, Cosmopolitan, Elle Magazine, and a couple of the Kardashians. Is it? Wow. In 2019, she was named the first ever ambassador for the Young Women's Trust. And if that wasn't enough, she's just launched her collaboration clothing line. We'll be talking to Toni about what motivates her, her inspirations, and digging out some of her most popular posts. Hi, Toni.
Hi.
It's great to have you here on PLT Behind Closed Doors. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I want us to kind of rewind a little bit and start at the beginning. So talk to us about your heritage, where you grew up, and where your kind of career journey started for you.
Sure. So I'm Nigerian. I was born in Nigeria. I moved to the UK when I was about 4 or 5 years old. My mum had a scholarship to study here. So we moved, and my dad's mum is actually British. My dad's biracial. And we thought, okay, let's, pick up, fresh start, move to the UK. And I've been obviously in the UK ever since. I would say that my career started really about 2 years ago, actually. I took to Twitter to just kind of share my personal thoughts, and it went from strength to strength, I guess. And people loved my writing, and then eventually quit my job. And now that's what I do full time.
Wow. So did you ever consider a more traditional career, or was it something that you always kind of knew you wanted to kind of eventually end up doing?
I have worked in lots of very traditional careers. I've worked in gas and electric. I worked in higher education. I worked in healthcare. And although I enjoyed those jobs to a degree, there was always something missing. And I always knew that I was meant to do something else and follow my passion. I just didn't know what. And up until about 28, I wouldn't say I knew what I wanted to do. A lot of people think that you just know. I didn't know. And I guess venturing into my hobbies and my passion led me to discovering, actually, this is what I'm really good at. This is what I should focus on. And it happened by accident, but I'm thankful that it happened.
So I wanted to kind of delve in a little bit into that crossover change, because even me personally, a lot of questions I always get is from, young Black women who maybe was like, when should I, and not even just young women in general, I should say, who, sometimes are deliberating between when is the right time to kind of leave your full-time employment and, pursue your dream. When did that time come for you, and what made you think, do you know what, let me just dive all the way in now?
It was a long time coming before I actually left that I had feelings about leaving. But what stopped me, and what I say to young women sometimes, is to really, risks are great, risks are fun, but really, really be sensible about the kind of risks you want to take and do an actual risk assessment. So for me, I like to take calculated risks, if you will. And I was in a position where I had quite significant financial contributions to make in different ways in my life. And I knew that I could not be out of a job to chase my dreams because of these financial responsibilities. And I decided to leave when I felt like financially I could maintain a certain level of income, which would allow me to still stick to delivering my financial responsibilities, because it wasn't just on behalf of myself. If in my life it was just me and I was the only person I cared for, then I would have quit a long time ago. But I had to consider family. I had to consider financial contributions I make to certain people, or things I pay for that help other people out. So I had to take a calculated risk. And when I felt like, okay, I'm seeing myself make income in my passions and my hobbies enough to sustain these responsibilities, that's when I decided to finally leave my job. And that's why it did take quite a while, but I'm glad I did it in that way.
I was going to say that because I love when you said about you have to do a risk assessment, because I feel like you always kind of know when the time is right, and you shouldn't be afraid either to have to work on the side to have your income, because again, like you said, you still have some responsibilities. I think one thing that I really loved about you is your honesty and transparency. And I think one of the posts that I kind of saw you post, I think it was on Instagram, was you kind of your frustration with, you know, a European public figure kind of saying that racism isn't an issue in Europe. What did you kind of make about that statement? And I know we're going to get into whole BLM a little bit deeper in a little while, but I think that kind of stood out for me because I feel like the way you articulated it was very intellectual, one, but two, you kind of got to the point and made your point without it coming across as, you know how they love to kind of pit us aggressive, but I think you kind of made your point in a non-aggressive kind of way. What do you think about racism and we can't speak for the whole of you because obviously we live in the UK, but what maybe was some of your examples of racism that you've experienced personally, and, you know, in relation to your tweet, where was your kind of point of view coming from?
I guess my point of view was definitely coming from a place of frustration when people who are not of a minority background pass opinions as to whether racism is an issue or whether it exists, because I feel like, okay, it's ironic that people are quick to say it's not an issue when they are never really on the receiving end of racism, because they are in the majority, they're not in the minority. And the systems set in place, societal systems that have been set in place historically, have been set up in their favor. It's like a man, for example, saying that patriarchy doesn't exist. Like okay, really, you are on the receiving end and you do not experience the negatives that come with it, so you cannot say that. The same way people who are not of a minority background, I think it's unfair for them, and it's mad actually for them to say that racism isn't an issue in any setting. And I think my frustration with that post was, one, it was not someone who was Black or Asian, for example. They were not a person of color. And also to speak on behalf of people's experiences, I think that's really, really unfair, because you're taking a voice away from people who go through racism day to day in their own way. And the irony about the European element or the British element is that England is the forefather of racism, if you will. Colonization, if we look at it historically, started with the British. Slavery started with the British. And although we may not see the impact of slavery as directly as some of our US peers because of the way the transatlantic slave trade was managed, we cannot delete our history. We cannot forget that element of our history. And British racism, I think, is very different from US racism. So when I say it's very different, I think US racism can often be very, very direct, whereas British racism can be quite covert. And I think for a lot of people in the UK that have experienced racism, the racism they've experienced has been one that involved microaggressions. And I can't obviously speak for everyone again, but in my case and the case of my friends, it's snide statements here and there. It's making assumptions about your ability to pay based on the color of your skin. It's assuming you are in the know about something because you are Black. It's assuming you are incapable of something, or even being complimentary in a way that is offensive. Just the other day, my friend was being interviewed about something, and the interviewer asked her if she went to university, and she said, oh, yes. And then she gave the university she went to, and they said, oh, wow, you went there. That's so impressive. Well done. But the way it was said to her came across as, oh, wow, you're actually capable of being that intelligent that you'd go to university like that. And in my case, again, it's been microaggressions in the workplace. I remember once I was at the office a long time ago, and I had cornrows in, and a colleague said I look like a dinosaur. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I remember
whoa. Let's just pause on that one there for just 1 minute. Yeah, because I think when you start to talk about microaggressions in the workplace and, you know, allyship and kind of some of those words now that are slightly becoming, you know, what's the word I want to use? Are kind of becoming tangible words in the workplace now. I think it's important to note that, yes, black women change their hair in the workplace a lot. And I think it's important to note that we also don't like people touching our hair.
Yeah.
Just saying, just putting it out there. But to reference your cane rose looking like a dinosaur is very wild to me.
Yeah, very wild, very wild. And yeah, I was astonished, to be honest. And in the same workplace, actually, someone said to me, something came up on the news about grime music or drill. Something came up, and then someone turned to me and said, "Oh, Toni would know." And I was thinking, wait, why would Toni know? I don't even really listen to this genre of music. Why would Toni know? I remember once as well, I tweeted about this incident, another microaggression. This wasn't even a microaggression. This was straight up racist, right? I went to a supermarket that shall remain unnamed for the purpose of this podcast, but I was with my best friend and we were talking to the security guard, and he seemed really, really nice. Then as we walked away, he said, I had my hair out, my natural hair out in an afro. He said, he was being cheeky with us, having banter. Then he said, "Oh, girls, make sure you don't hide any watermelons in your afro." I know. So that's what I mean about like the microaggressions and racism in the and we've seen it recently. Actually, we've seen it with Black Lives Matter in the UK and Britain's Got Talent, and celebrities speaking up against the racism and microaggressions that Black people face, whether it's Black people in the US, across the world, or in the UK, and members of the UK public having an issue with that, which is madness to me. Like, why would you have an issue with someone saying that another person's life matters or that their own life matters? So yeah, so racism it exists in Europe. It exists everywhere. And it will exist everywhere for a very long time, unfortunately. And that post I made on Instagram was in reflection of how I felt.
Yeah, I think for me, especially with Black Lives Matter, I think it's important to note the way that the color black has been weaponized, even in the media. And I think that's why it doesn't, even when I look at when people say all lives matter, we're not saying only Black Lives Matter. We're saying, yeah, all lives do matter, but it doesn't even make sense, because if all lives matter, then I'm assuming that in those all lives, Black Lives Matter. No,
exactly.
So it doesn't even make sense. Like, make it make sense. And I think people are, if you look at a slice of a pie, for example, people are thinking that we want to take the whole pie and cut them out. And no, we're actually just asking for an equal share of that pie. And I think the way that the media has weaponized the word black is part of the issue, because it's now weaponized it in a way where when you hear BLM or Black Lives Matter, you automatically think riots, you automatically think statues, you automatically think like, people like being wild on the streets, horses falling down. It's taking it away from the actual messaging of what Black Lives Matter actually means. And I think for me, that was one thing that was really upsetting, in the way that the media kind of weaponized the word black. So, even when we had the far right protests, the word white wasn't weaponized the same way in the media. There was no color attached to the headlines. But, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, the focus is on black more than lives matter. How important do you think it is for us to use our platforms, especially as kind of influencers and people who are seen at the forefront of our industries, to speak about racism and to speak about the Black Lives Matter movement?
I think it's very important. I think it's very important for anyone to speak on what they deem right and what they deem wrong, and to stand up against what they deem wrong, and to amplify what they deem right. And when I look at myself and the position I'm in, and the awareness that I have that there are a lot of people that do look up to me and people that respect me, I think it is important for me to try my best to educate people, but I will say to the best of my capability. And when I say that, that's with emphasis that it's important for people to speak on what they're comfortable with and speak on what they actually know, right?
No,
and
agree.
I'm very big on speaking to the best of my capability, with the awareness of when I need to stop and when I need to amplify the voices of other people, or when I need to point someone in another direction. So as an example, like recently I got asked to do an interview about something, and it was a great topic, but when it's like, okay, I have lived experience of this, but I know someone who can do this so much justice, right? And I have to reflect and be like, Toni, do you really have the range? So I think it's important to talk, but also it's important to know when to listen and when to amplify. So there are times where I definitely talk because I know people look up to me. And there are times where I'm like, Toni, no, this is an opportunity for you to amplify because you don't have the range, right? And I think it's important to ensure, like, as a community, that we're not just also talking just to fill space. We are also talking to add value. And that may involve not talking at all and opening the ground up to someone else and saying, you know what, speak to this woman because this woman or this man is going to do it justice. So I do think it's very important for all of us to like do what we can. But when I say that, it comes with the awareness of knowing what you're capable of and knowing when you should also amplify the voice of someone else.
What do you think of like some of the brands' responses to Black Lives Matter? Do you think that all brands should be using their space to communicate? And this is going off the back of what you've just said, because I think it's important, like, and I agree with you that you should know your realm and know your lane. And doesn't, like you said, doesn't necessarily mean because you have the platform that you should also be the all-seeing, all-compassing eye. So do you think that all brands should be, you know, responding to Black Lives Matter? And do you think it's fair that some brands got called out more than others, especially like when we were kind of, you know, at the aftermath of, you know, George Floyd and brands posting the black square and all of that higgy haga? Do you think that, you know, we should be holding brands accountable?
I think we should be holding brands accountable regarding what they are actually tangibly doing in the background. Because the proof is in the pudding, right? Like, okay, 100 brands could post a black square, but how many brands have Black people on their advisory board? How many brands work with Black influencers? How many brands are amplifying the voices of Black content creators? So I think, yeah, definitely hold brands accountable, but we shouldn't do it based on just surface level or what we're seeing them post when everyone is talking about it. I think the moment it really counts is when people aren't talking about it anymore. When it's not like, obviously people are always talking about it, but people who are always talking about it are people who have a passion or who have lived experience or who are on the receiving end, right? But when mainstream media stop talking about it, what we need to pay attention to are the brands that also stop talking about it because it's not being echoed as a trending topic. And I think we should all have an interest in what brands are doing, but what they are actually physically doing and how they are actually introducing Black people in their workplaces. And it's not just equality and oh by the way, we employ 10% Black people. No, it's also about the inclusion. So it's very easy to say, oh, we have a diverse pool of colleagues, we have a diverse pool of people who work for us, but how are they actually being included in the processes? How are they being included in marketing? And it's great having equality on the surface because, oh, we have lots of Black people here and this person has been employed for 5 months, this person has been employed for 5 years, but do they actually feel included, or do they feel like they're just there as like a token employee? So I think, it's important for us to hold brands accountable, but not just according to who posts a black square. It's about who's actually doing things in the background.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I think around that whole time I had the same kind of feeling. And I think I remember posting about, you know, does your front of house Instagram messaging reflect your back of house establishment? So, you know, it's all well and good like using Black models for your campaign, like using, you know, Black references and, you know, cultivating the community front of house, but is that reflected back of house? And I think that's so important now, like especially like in this age, like you said, like I feel like diversity and inclusion have almost become marketing buzzwords. So I don't think like it's everybody's lane, but I do feel like if you're going to be about it, if you're gonna use Black culture and, you know, use it front of house, and I definitely feel like it should always be reflected back of house. And I feel like I can only really speak from a fashion perspective. It's like, you know, diversity to a lot of fashion brands meant, oh, we're just going to use more Black models front of house in our campaigns. That was it. There was no back of house there was nothing about back of house, you know? So I think it's important. I agree with you on what you said, but I also agree, like, I think the messaging needs to be, you know, your back of house needs to match your front of house, basically. I want to get in a little bit into like your kind of personal experience. You know, as a Black woman being vocal online, you must get your share of kind of hateful comments. Does that environment sometimes make it hard to be strong all the time, and how do you kind of overcome that?
In the beginning, definitely. There were periods where I had crippling anxiety because I was just like worried about pressing enter on a tweet and what the backlash would be, or how people would approach me when they disagree with me. And Twitter is one of those spaces in particular where there's a lack of nuance, right? So if someone doesn't disagree, a lot of the time it's not, okay, I can see where you're coming from, but I don't really agree because of these points. It's you stupid ass, BS, this, that, da, da, da. Just, yeah, crazy insults and cuss words and everything you can think of. And I remember there was actually a day where like Twitter, UK Twitter, like dragged me because I write too much, right? And I think I wrote, someone was insulting like Black women wearing weaves. And I must have written a tweet about like, oh, yeah, some guys will say they don't like women wearing weaves, but at the end of the day, look at the WCW. They'll still choose a woman who wears weaves. So like, relax. And then like the timeline, the timeline was dragging me for like ruining men having fun when men are trying to dog on women. Like, oh, here she comes again, ruining our fun. And I remember like at first it was like funny, and then it just turned into like relentless insults from people. And I was on Twitter seeing that over and over and over again. And I think when you are someone who is not on the receiving end, it is very easy to throw out insults, but you have to sometimes think when someone is hyper visible, it's not an insult times one, it's an insult times 1,000 or times 10,000. And I don't think people often consider the impact it can have on people's mental health. And in that period, I seriously wanted to quit Twitter. I logged out. I was this close to like deactivating my account. And what stopped me was like family and friends saying, look, you didn't say anything wild. Two, you worked so hard to build your platform to where it is. Like, you need to realize that people will not always agree, and people will approach you with negativity. But at the end of the day, as long as you're living in your truth and you're speaking what you believe, it doesn't matter. And I think that's for me, that was when everything changed for me, because I really reflected and I said, you know what, Toni? Do you feel like you are speaking in your truth and you are standing in your authentic self? And the answer was yes. And it was like, okay, if I'm standing in my authentic self and everything I write, in the moment I write it, I believe it, then what beef do I have with other people when they don't agree? Like, they are entitled to their opinion. And as far as like people being negative or being unnecessarily negative, I think there's an awareness that the people do not know me directly. So it's very easy for them to judge me on face value. Two, that sometimes people intentionally misunderstand you because they do not agree with what you are trying to do. So for some people, believe it or not, people think I'm actually too empowering for women and, it's a bit much. And for me, it's like, okay, those people are going to intentionally misunderstand everything I do because they don't like me anyway. They don't want me to give their girlfriend confidence or their wife confidence or make them feel that they are worthy with or without them, for example. And I think there was also the awareness that hurt people hurt people. So sometimes people are going to be nasty to me, not because of anything I've done, but because they are hurting and there's something that they are trying to resolve within themselves that they're struggling with. And one way they're going to display that is through being nasty to me for no reason. So yeah, I think with time now, I think all those realizations have led me to a place where like, I see something bad and of course I'm human. It might bother me for a split second, but then I just kind of like reflect on the fact that, look, this is me. I love my job. I love what I do. I'm helping people in the process. I feel like I am standing in my power, living in my truth, and I will not please everyone. And then when I remember those things, I'm just like, yeah, I'm over it.
I feel, but so are there some steps that you maybe take to kind of protect your mental health? Because I can only imagine, like you said, like, you know, being dragged online is not is not a happy place to see, and to kind of, it's like a downward spiral, isn't it? Because you're constantly reading negative thoughts, then your mind is in a negative space. So how is it, have you kind of built not necessarily a wall, or do you have like a methodology that you use to kind of make sure that you don't stay in the sunken place, essentially?
Yes, I do not have my notifications on Twitter or Instagram, unless it's for someone, like, unless someone that I follow does like likes a tweet or retweets me. So I don't have my notifications on, for one. Two, if I see something that implies someone is saying something negative about me, or I see something where someone is saying something negative about me, my strategy is just block. And some people might think that's aggressive, but me, I will preemptively block people. Like if someone cusses me out and I see you liking that comment,
of progress so shall prosper.
At all. I'll if you like that comment and I see you liking that comment, I'll block you. If I see you retweeting that comment, I'll block you. Because I'm thinking I don't need that energy in my life. Because if you are happy at someone else,
the powers in the blocks is
right.
The powers in the block.
If you're happy about someone else like cyberbullying another person, I'll block you. 2. Sorry, I've said 2. 3. I do not search my name on Twitter. I do not do that. I know a lot of people search their name online. Me, I don't search my name on Google. I don't search my name on Twitter. I search my name nowhere. And 4, I tweet and I put my phone down. Like in the beginning, I used to tweet and I used to like stay glued to it to see what people are saying.
Yeah.
No. Now that I feel like, okay, I speak what I believe, I'm standing in my truth. I don't care whether you agree or disagree, because in the moment I tweeted it, I believed it. So I tweet and I put my phone down. So I think all those things really, really help me. And I think, but fundamentally, following people that are conducive to a positive online experience. And people, I think, underestimate the value of following the right type of people, because people can be quick to be like, oh, this platform is such a negative space, or I hate this, or this is so evil, this is so horrible. But when I tailored my timeline to reflect people that bring joy into my life, or reflect people that bring knowledge or wisdom into my life, my experience changed. It wasn't about following people just because, follow to follow back, or following someone because they're in the know, or following someone because they're popular. No, I don't care how cool you are, how many people like you, what you do. I'm following you if I feel like you are sharing content that adds value, right? So I think that's really important. Not following people that
I think you need to say that one again, louder for the people at the back. I think you need to say that one again. You follow people that what?
Add value. So I think that's so important, man. So important. So I would say those are the main things.
Have you seen a shift over time? Because obviously, like you said, you kind of really started about 2 years ago, and I feel like our culture has changed and shifted so much within that time, even in the way that people receive your tweets now. Have you seen quite a big change over the years?
Yeah, definitely. Well, one, I don't really get as many like negative comments, but I don't know whether that's because I've blocked like thousands of people, or whether people are just used to seeing my face. But I would say like one shift is people now knowing that, look, what she is actually sharing to help other people. It is bigger than her. Because when I started, it was, here she goes again. She's hurt, very emotional. Oh God, always like, what's she going through? Because people didn't know me and they didn't really understand why I was doing what I was doing. And I think now people know of me. It's like, okay, if she's tweeting something, it's not necessarily about something that is happening in her life. She could be tweeting it because she's trying to assist another person. And people know me now as a writer. So I think people don't necessarily take my tweets as personally now, I think, as well. And I think people are also kind of more accepting of my space and my purpose, and more understanding. Before, I think there were some people that jumped to the assumption that, I was like this online man hater that hated men, and I just tweeted about them because they were so annoying. When in reality, now they've gotten used to my content. They're like, actually, no, when you actually pay attention to her tweets, you can't actually pick out a tweet where she's just like being horrible.
Male bashing.
Yeah. Like, and I think people are now realizing, and I think even men are realizing, actually, maybe initially we were a bit harsh, because when you look at everything in the grand scope of everything, it's more so helping women navigate spaces of their life better, and helping men understand how they can treat women better, and not just attacking men as a whole. So I think that's another way it's definitely changed.
Yeah, I agree, because one of the things that I love so much about your platform is I do feel like it is like a space where you are enhancing the way women should, one, be expected to be treated, but also two, having the self-respect for themselves. And one of the things I really, really love about your platform is that whenever I read some of your tweets, I almost feel like, yeah, this is the levels, like this is where I should be at, or this is what I should be expecting, and not on a superficial level, but even like self-respecting for yourself. And one of the things that stood out to me recently that you tweeted and grammed was about people making time for you, that there's not really much excuse. Like if someone wants to make the time for you, they will. And I just thought that does hit home quite a lot, because I think sometimes you can always make excuse, they were busy, they were this, but I think when it really boils down to it, if they really wanted to speak to you, they'll make the time to speak to you. So I always see your platform as more of like, not even so much about women empowerment, but it's more just about self-respect as well. And I feel like sometimes in society, especially with social media, that can kind of, the lines can get a bit blurred. And it's something that I actually really wanted to ask you about is, do you feel like your tradition has played a little bit a part of that? Because being Nigerian as well, you know, like sometimes you have that really strong iron hand that can come into it. And I think a lot of us, where we're kind of first generation, we were born here and like, you know, we've kind of grown up in the West with some like, you know, some traditional Nigerian, what's the word I want to use? I don't want to use iron hand, but you know, tradition versus kind of Western upbringing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it has played a little bit a part in the way you perceive things as well?
Definitely. Because I think when we look at Nigeria as a whole, I think across the world, patriarchy exists everywhere, but I feel like it is abruptly evident in Nigerian culture. And when we consider the roles, the traditional Nigerian man role and the traditional Nigerian woman role, and we've seen the way either our parents have led the way, or we've seen how our mothers have sacrificed, or our grandmothers, or what they've done, or how they've managed their relationships. And we can do one of two things. We can emulate that, or we could rebel. And I think for me, my Nigerianness definitely played a role, because I have seen through, not necessarily with my parents, because my mum is very, very, I don't want to say Western, if you will, but my mum's a go-getter. My mum is a badass. My mum, yeah, she does bits. She's a director. She does bits. But I have definitely seen in other family members or aunties, uncles, not necessarily the ones I'm related to, but in the community, if you will, the way women are regarded as a helpmate to the point of diminishing their own well-being or sacrificing their own goals. And I think seeing that as a Nigerian, and seeing so many Nigerian women who have taken on that role, where they have basically given up everything they've wanted for their family or for their husband, it definitely made me more acutely aware of the fact that it's an easy thing to fall into, and it's one that I didn't want to fall into. And I think growing up, I also saw elements of myself like mirroring that. Like, you know, when you're in your 20s and you think, you know, I want to be ride or die wifey. I want to be ride or die. I want to support my man. I want to do that. I want to be like, and then really having to put myself in check and being like, actually, is this the life you want for yourself?
Is it nourishing for you?
Exactly. Like,
yes.
Will I have regrets? And is the sacrifice worth it? And what am I actually sacrificing to what end and what for? And really having those conversations with myself and being like, actually, I don't want to be that woman that I've seen so many other women before me become, where their life is literally their husband and their kids, and that is it. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that if you make the active choice. And I think that's the defining thing, like you making the active choice because you want to, not because it's expected of you. And I think as a Nigerian woman, it is often expected of us. When will you marry? When will you do this?
Oh, gosh.
When are you having children? When are you having a husband? And your life is like, for some reason, the meaning of life is connected to the existence of a husband, being connected to a man and having kids. And it's like, wait, life is so much more than that. There are some women who never want a husband. There are some women who are not even heterosexual. There are some women who can't even have kids. Are you saying that their life means less, or there's less value in their life? And yeah, being Nigerian definitely played a role, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's important that we can understand some of the traditions that we want to take on, but some of the like generational trauma that we actually want to leave behind. And I think that's an important conversation to have, especially like, you know, as women now in 2020, like what does that mean? Like to be self-sufficient, to be like, and not self-sufficient to say, okay, I don't want a man, because there's many of us that do, but like it's also a bit like, how do I make sure that I find the right match for me? Because who do I know who I am? And I think that's an important conversation, especially within our community, in that conversation often gets left behind. And it's just like, it's like what you said about broken people hurting other broken people. If you're broken as a female and you haven't dealt with certain trauma, or you haven't dealt with certain anguishes in your life, then what person are you going to attract, you know, to you? So it's almost as like, do you know who you are? You need to understand 100% who you are before you and love who you are before you can expect somebody else to love you, essentially.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's what I get when I read from all your tweets. So
I'm glad.
I want to get into like, I want to get into your work with the Young Women's Trust. For those who don't know, it's a feminist non-profit organization that helps achieve economic justice for young women. Why is this organization so important to you?
It's an important organization because I think often for too long, women have been left behind. And when I say left behind, I mean that sometimes we can be quick to assume that the struggles people face are exactly the same across genders, when really, no. The experience that women, particularly young women, face and the intersectionality between their gender and their age is completely different. A woman, the issues faced by a woman at 40 are very different from a young woman at 18, for example. And I think what I love about Young Women's Trust is the fact that they recognize that, and they recognize that there is this massive cohort of young women in the UK that need support. They need support economically, financially. They need support with ensuring that they have the tools they need to succeed, right? And Young Women's Trust do a great job of looking at the way the government helps young women, about actioning change in the way the government helps young women, about getting information out there, getting resources out there as well. So I started working with them in 2019. So a lot of it initially was like amplifying their voice and their messages. And then I've also traveled to host workshops with them. So I've done like a 2-day workshop with them where I'm speaking to young women about their lives, and particularly like economic empowerment. And just not on, I think when we think about economic empowerment, we can almost always think like, oh, it's about getting rich. Like, no, it's also about ensuring that you know how to manage your money well, even if you don't have a lot of it. And I shared my budgeting spreadsheet with them. I gave everyone a copy of my budgeting spreadsheet. I talked them through how to use it. I talked them through my experience as a young woman, and I helped them with a few of their dilemmas. There were young women who were on benefits, young women who struggled to get work, young women who are managing families and trying to find jobs at the same time. And I think it's important for young women in particular to have women that they can look to, whether it's online or physically, for support and for guidance. And yeah, that's why it's a really, really important organization.
Are there 1 or 2 budget tips that you can share with us today? Because we want to get our bank accounts in order.
Budgeting tips. Let me think off the top of my head. Budgeting tips is recognizing the difference between a want and a need. I think some people often purchase things and they think, oh, I need this. And it's like, wait, no, do you really need this? Or is it something you want? And if it's something you want, can you do without it? So I think that's important. I would say another one is paying debt off. I think it can be very easy for people to budget to save for things when they have debt, or budget to buy other things when they have debt. But debt comes with interest rates, and interest rates are not pretty. So as far as like advice for budgeting, I'd say if you are budgeting and you have debt, at the forefront of your mind shouldn't be budgeting to buy something or to save for something. It should be budgeting to pay off the existing debt you have if it's connected to an interest rate. Because obviously sometimes you get like 0, they lower you in with that 0% for 48 months, right? And then when that 48 months is over, you're paying like God knows what. So that's my other tip. Like, try your very best to budget to to pay off debt.
I think I really wanted to kind of move the conversation into a digital space because, that's where a lot of us, especially now with COVID-19 and, the future, they always say that, the future is digital. What are kind of some of the things that you look for, especially someone who's worked with, global international brands, when you're thinking about a brand partnership? Is there any like particular brand values or any deal breakers for you, like when you're looking to collaborate with a brand?
I definitely look at the brief. Like, what is the purpose behind this content that you want me to create or what you want me to do? And how am I going to help people in the process? So it could be a brand that wants me to promote something and it's going to be empowering to women, for example. Or it could be a brand that wants me to promote something to share knowledge that I feel like is going to be helpful to people. So ultimately, how the content is going to help someone. So I think that's important. And also I like to consider who else is involved in the creation process. Like, that's really important for me. So like, for example, like even with this, when you mentioned that you were getting involved, I was like, yeah, I remember, I was like, yeah. So like, if someone's like, okay, I want you to get involved in this, and these are the people getting involved, and it's people that I admire and I look up to and I really respect, like hands down, I'm there. But if on the flip side, a brand's like, oh, I want you to get involved in this, and the other people involved are people that ethically are very different from me, or I believe that we do not mesh when it comes to the messaging that we share, then that's something that would make me inclined to say no. And also, how is it going to be used? Because it's great if it's helpful for people, but it's also about how that information is going to be shared. How will it be used? Are you going to use it to just promote a product? Or are you also going to do it to upskill people, for example? So that's really important for me. And I guess the history of the brand and like the roles that they have played, like, I feel like when it comes to brands, no brand is perfect. No brand is perfect, but it's also about like, if they have made any errors, what have they done to remedy the errors, for example? So I think that's also important for me.
Yeah, agreed. Because even when I was looking at like, gender pay gap and even like the racial pay gap, I think the racial pay gap is like 3.2 million, something along those lines. And, obviously like, people of color being affected, the women of color being affected the most in that kind of scale. What advice would you kind of give to young Black women who are listening and struggling in the workplace, especially in the light of everything that we've kind of seen over the last couple of months? We kind of saw the domino effect of, the killing of George Floyd into like, Breonna Taylor, and, the UK is not innocent. We've got our own cases here, and everything from the way that, Black Lives Matter was kind of weaponized in the media. What advice would you give to kind of young Black women who that can essentially like, encourage them and amplify their voices in this space?
I think one of the most important things is to be very tuned into your well-being at this point. I think with everything going on, when we look at a worldwide pandemic and we also look at the issues surrounding racism across the world, is an overwhelming period for everybody at the moment, but I think particularly Black people, because you are facing trauma almost on a weekly basis, like seeing your peers, whether it's across the pond or whether it's in the same country as you, be killed, be hurt, or face adversity. Like you log online and you see Black trauma regularly. And I think it's important to be very, very tuned into your well-being. And when I say that, I mean like know when it is time to log off, to log out, know when it is time to take a break. And it's great to be in the know, but you don't want to be in the know to the point that the trauma is affecting you and impacting you in ways that are incredibly damaging. So that's one piece of advice I would get. Another one would be to, if you feel comfortable, to use your voice and do not feel like because of everything that's going on, you have to silence yourself. Because I know some people think the opposite and they think, oh, with everything going on, I don't want to come across like this angry Black woman. I don't want to come across like this aggressive Black woman. I don't want to say something that could make me appear a certain way, whether it's at work, or whether it's on a job. And my thing is, do what makes you feel comfortable, but also do it with the awareness that nobody can silence you and nobody should silence you. And just because of everything that's going on, don't second guess things you truly believe and you truly want to say. And also be your own cheerleader. And when I say that, what I mean is often, and I've experienced this as a Black woman, people may not be shouting about you initially, right? So you shout about yourself. You shout about yourself to the point that people recognize your value and they see your worth and they understand what you bring to the table. And I think as Black women and Black women in careers or in jobs right now, and things are kind of up in the air with coronavirus, people are going on furlough, people are losing jobs, and then you have the BLM and stuff like that. Now is the time to shout about yourself and shout about your skills and shout about the value you bring to your organizations. And if you work for yourself, like share your content online, be your own cheerleader, talk about how amazing you are, because if you can recognize it in yourself, other people will recognize it in you. And remind people that, look, like, one, you're here to stay and you are good at what you do. I think, is there anything? I'll say those are three things that come to my head to begin with.
I think I would also add in to that is that, you know, exercise and lean on your community. I think what we don't do enough is talk to each other.
Yeah.
So if you're not sure about how much you should be getting paid, ask other people. Like, don't be afraid to ask.
Yes.
Because the power is in knowledge. Because I feel like sometimes, especially with us, we've been so conditioned that, oh, only one of you can be in that space. Oh, this job is only one of you can be here, you know. So we've just kind of become pigeonholed in this section of just like, we don't really know, or like, we're not really sure, but I'm too scared to ask. And I always say, like, if you don't know, ask. It's better to ask and then to not know. So even when it comes to things like invoicing and payment terms and like just things that you're not even aware of, because I remember when I first came into the creative industry in particular, there was so much, working in fashion, there was so much that I didn't know. And it was like, and that's my personality. I'm quite an abrupt person. So I'm very much like, well, I don't really know what that means. Can you signify that? I'm assertive. I'm assertive. That's the right word to use. So even when it comes to things like markups and, you know, retail cost price and things like that, at first, I wasn't really sure, like, what should be the right markups. And, you know, all this store is asking for this amount of discount off product. Like, is this the right amount of discount? And the only way I was able to know, I just started asking random people. I'd find this buyer. Is this correct? Or, you know, if it came to certain jobs, okay, what should be my hourly rate? Or, you know, what should my consultancy fee be? If I'm not sure, I'd go online or I'd ask other people in the industry, what are you getting paid? Because I feel like the weapon that they kind of use against us is they expect us to stay silent. So when they lowball you, they're expecting you, and then you come from a place of gratitude of, oh, I'm just so grateful for that opportunity, I'm just so grateful that they thought of me, oh, I'm just so grateful to be included, that you're not even seeing your value and what you're bringing to the table. So I think for me, I would add into that, if you're not sure, lean on the community, ask people within your network, and even if you're not sure, don't be afraid to just message people like, listen, this opportunity has come. I don't even think you need to mention the brand all the time, but this opportunity has come. What would you think is a respectable range for me to get paid for this job? This is the deliverables. This is what they're asking for. How much should I get paid? Rather than you lowballing yourself and feeling like you're just privileged to be there, see your value. There's a lot of value in Black women at the moment. There's a lot of value in our culture. There's a lot of value in our history. So understand what you're bringing to the table, and understand that, you know, what your point of view is also bringing to the table, and what your network is actually going to bring to the table, because those are all some of the things that you use to quantify what your rates should be. So if, for example, if you're helping that brand reach a new audience, for example, with you, Toni, like maybe some brands maybe reach out to you because they know that the audience that follows you, there's a particular audience that they want to tap into that they might necessarily not have on their own. So they're looking to reach out to you so that you can use your platform to be able to bridge that gap. So I think for anybody, I would say, if you're not sure, especially in this time of Black History Month, where, you know, Black creators now are going to be kind of at the forefront of those visions. If you're not sure, ask, because it's better to ask and to know the price than to be lowballed, and then you're feeling like you're being overworked or you're undervalued in the position that you've taken.
I'm so glad you said that, actually, because recently, for the first time ever, like my the group chat I'm in for Heels Off, recently we've been sharing each other's like payments for jobs. Like if we know more than one of us is doing a job, like, how much are they paying you? I'm getting X. And then we'll see what the other person's getting, and they'll be like, oh no, ask for more, or oh no, like. And I think that point you touched on is so important, because it's right. Like typically it's been considered uncouth to talk about money, but ignorance surrounding money only benefits organizations. That's the only person it benefits. Like it actually doesn't hinder us to know what our peers are getting paid. It just affects organizations. And that's why there's that, like, oh, you don't talk about money, because when people do start talking about money, brands need to pay up more. So you're so right. It's important. Ask people about money. I completely agree.
I just kind of want to go into, you know, where you kind of are now and what's next, to kind of round up the gist. I obviously saw your collaboration with Becca Apparel. I loved it. Obviously it has a lot of like strong anchor prints and, you know, a lot of contemporary trends. Why did you collaborate with Becca Apparel, 1? And 2, what does it mean to be able to kind of share your heritage in a really kind of cool and trendy online way?
Becca Apparel, I think, appealed to me from the jump because it's a company that is run by 2 Nigerian women. So it's like, when I knew that, I was like, okay, cool. Because I love Abby. So I saw the clothing. I saw the clothing already, and I loved the clothing. And I'd received some clothing from them that I really liked. So when they approached me about this collection, I was like, okay, hell yeah, because one, it's run by women who are just like me, and two, I love the clothes. Like it's clothes that I would wear. And as far as like sharing my heritage in this cool, contemporary, fun way, it was insane for me. But really, it was such a blessing because I'm aware that my USP for a lot of people is not fashion. It isn't. My USP is the messaging that I push on my Instagram and Twitter regarding love, empowerment, career. It's about my words more than anything. So when a brand approached me to do this, I was gassed. I can't lie, because it's like, okay, cool. This is an avenue that I haven't really stepped in and delved in full force. And it would be so nice to show people that actually, no, I do love fashion. I do have a passion for it. I enjoy wearing clothes. I enjoy shopping. I love the concept of being able to sit down and like design and pick prints and all of that. So I thought this was a great opportunity to showcase that to people and kind of demonstrate my style as well. So yeah, that was great for me. And I'm so happy that I got involved with that. And hopefully like moving forward, fashion is something I could do maybe not so much in the near future, because I've got lots I'm working on right now, but in the distant future, I definitely want to create another collection.
So what's next? You just touched on it. There's lots that you're working on right now. To conclude, what's next for you?
What's next?
What can you tell us?
Yeah, see, that's the key question. Irene. What can I tell you?
What can you tell us?
Oh God, this is where it gets it's a little sticky. It's a sticky one still. Okay, what can I actually tell you? I'm working on projects. So a project, I can't give like the full details, but a project that I think will take what I do at the moment and broaden it, if you will. So that's going to be a massive project, and hopefully I can announce that in the next like 4 weeks, fingers crossed. I'm also going to be working on some audio stuff as well. Can't say who with yet, but like, yeah, podcasty type stuff.
We love to see it, sis. We love to see it.
So those are the two big things. I mean, it's kind of vague because I'm sticking to the rules and guidelines regarding what I can and can't say, but definitely just taking what I do now and amplifying it to a different scale entirely. And that's basically my plan for the remainder of 2020.
Oh, sis, we love to see it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
It's been so fun. So before we go, if anybody wants to follow you on socials, on Twitter, on Instagram, give them the @ sis. How can they follow you?
So everyone can find me on Instagram or on Twitter via Toni Tone, but it's with zeros instead of O's. So T0NI, T0NE.
See, that's it, guys. Make sure you follow her. Love, like, subscribe, repost. But don't attack her because she'll block you. She'll block you.
Thank you so much,
sis, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate you, and we'll catch up with you soon. All the best. We can't wait to see what the world has in store for you coming up next. And, you know, just from one black sister to another, we appreciate you, and I congratulate you on all that you're doing. Thank you for empowering us. Thank you for uplifting us. And thank you for actually showing us our true value and to be our true authentic self. So guys, that was the end of episode 1 for Behind Closed Doors season 6. Please stay tuned. We've got 3 more episodes to go with some bossy babes. Stay tuned. This Black History Month is Pretty Little Thing. We out.